I was the wedding planner for my sister's wedding last week. I'm 35 and planned many weddings, but this one felt different. I was back in the town where I grew up, a place that held so many memories. I wanted everything to be special for her. I had everything organized, or so I thought. I arrived at the community hall the night before to set up. It was quiet. Too quiet. As I was moving tables, the air felt heavy. I knew this place well. Then I felt it. Someone was watching me. I turned quickly and saw him. A white-haired stranger stood outside, staring. My heart raced. I couldn't see his face clearly. It made me uneasy. He approached slowly. I thought about calling out, but instead I stood frozen. He came closer, pulling something from his coat. I squinted to see better. He handed me an antique locket. I touched it. It was cold, sending a chill down my spine. He leaned in, whispering something, but I couldn't understand. It felt like a warning, but I couldn't say why. The next day was the wedding. I felt that locket heavy in my pocket. I thought about tossing it, but something stopped me. As the ceremony started, I sensed a lot of murmurs among my family. I overheard bits of arguments, but dismissed them. It was supposed to be a happy day. Still, unease washed over me like a fog. The vendors began arriving late. The florist said they were stuck in traffic, but no one else was. I tried to shake it off. When I stepped outside for a breath, I noticed a portrait of my great-aunt hanging on the wall. For a moment, it felt like her eyes were on me. Then I blinked, and they seemed to follow someone else. Cold sweat trickled down my back. When I returned inside, the locket felt like it was pulling me down. I glanced at my son. He looked frightened, watching me like he sensed something. Just then I had to stop myself from taking a plate of food. He shook his head, eyes wide. Had he seen something I hadn't? Maybe I should have thrown the locket away. Maybe I shouldn't have taken it. That white-haired stranger felt tied to this day more than I understood. The wedding went on, but a part of me feared something dark was approaching. Right before the first dance, I turned to my son. "What is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just pointed at the door. I followed his gaze. No one was there, yet I felt a chill whisper through the hall. I took a deep breath. "What did you see?" I asked, trying to stay calm. But he just shook his head again. My heart was racing. I needed to make sure everything was okay. I felt the locket pulling in my pocket. I didn't understand what was happening. All I knew was that whatever that stranger had given me linked to something I didn't want to face. The unease grew, and I wondered how the night would end. As the first dance began, the mood shifted. The music filled the hall, but the tension didn't lift. I caught a glimpse of the guests, smiling and clapping, but my heart felt heavy. My eyes drifted to the corner where my son still stood, a shadow in the glow of fairy lights. He looked so small, so fragile, and I was suddenly struck by a wave of protectiveness. Just then, I noticed an older woman walk in, her face familiar but distant. My great-aunt. The air thickened again and I blinked to re-clear my vision. She hadn't been at the wedding earlier, I was sure of it. But there she was, moving gracefully among the guests, her gaze fixed on me. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The locket grew colder in my pocket, pulling me towards her. I didn't want to. I wanted to ignore that feeling. But I could feel my son's eyes on me again, wide and fearful. This time I took a step toward my great-aunt. "Is everything okay, sweetie?" My sister, the bride, caught my arm. I turned to her, trying to keep my voice steady. I think I need a moment. We're in the middle of a celebration. Just forget about it." Her eyes danced with confusion, frustration simmering just below the surface. I understood. This was her big day. I couldn't ruin it. But the pull of that locket and my great-aunt's penetrating stare felt stronger than any familial duty. Ignoring my sister's frown, I made my way towards the woman who looked so much like my great-aunt, yet seemed like a ghost. The crowd parted for me, almost as if they sensed my urgency. The closer I got, the more the whispers faded. Suddenly the music felt muted, like only I could hear it. "Please," I called out to her as she turned, her expression unreadable. "I need to know what you want." Without answering, she looked down at the ground. I followed her gaze and gasped. The floor beneath her was covered in shadows that twisted unnaturally, stretching toward me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. I felt my son's small hand clasped tight around mine. "Mom?" His voice quivered as the shadows slithered closer. I hadn't felt fear like this in years, and the weight of the locket intensified. I wanted to reassure him, to tell him everything would be all right. But I couldn't shake the icy grip of dread. Then something shifted in the corner of my eye. The white-haired stranger stood at the edge of the hall, watching us. I felt a wave of recognition rush over me. It was as if he had waited for this moment, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. I wanted to scream, to escape, but a feeling of helplessness washed over me. The shadows grew bolder. Someone needed to put an end to this. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice barely a whisper amid the chaos. That's when I saw it. A flashing light from the locket. It pulsed violently as if responding to my desperation. And in that moment, I realized I held more power than I ever thought. But would I be brave enough to wield it? Before I could react, the hall plunged into darkness. A scream shattered the air and panic erupted around us. The darkness swallowed everything. I could feel the air thicken, pressing down on my chest. Chaos erupted around me, but one sound pierced through. My son's soft cries, trembling against the fear that engulfed us both. "Mom, where are you?" I squeezed his hand tighter, trying to anchor him with my presence. "I'm here. I'm right here." My voice felt small and fragile, swallowed by the swirling panic in the room. I forced myself to breathe. "We need to find a way out." Suddenly the locket flared back to life, illuminating the darkness with a soft glow. It felt oddly reassuring, a beacon among the chaos. Slowly I moved in the direction of the light, my eyes scanning the floor for any sign of the shadows. They seemed to retreat, almost as if they feared the locket's bright pulse. "We have to go," I urged my son, pulling him closer to me. The crowd was a frenzy of flailing limbs and anxious shouts, but I concentrated on moving toward the exit. We stumbled through the throngs, my heart racing with every step. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was the white-haired stranger again. He stepped forward, the light from my locket reflecting off his face. The calm indifference in his eyes felt out of place amidst the chaos. "You sought me," he said, though his voice seemed almost normal, even oddly soothing. "Now you face the decision." "Get away from us," I shouted, stepping in front of my son protectively. "Do you not want answers?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "I want to leave," I breathed, feeling panic bubble in my throat. "I just want to be safe." He extended his palm, revealing a small glimmering object. "The truth lies in what you hold. This locket connects you to what's lost. You must choose." I hesitated. "Choose what? What are you talking about?" He stretched his arm closer, the object shimmering like a tiny star. "To discover the weight of your past, or to continue the flight from it." Before I could respond, the shadows surged again, swirling around the stranger like a wave crashing against a shore. His calm demeanor shifted to urgency. You must decide quickly. The darkness seeks to reclaim what is yours. A weight pressed on my chest. I felt the locket in my pocket pulsing in time with my heart, full of power but heavy with intent. Just when I thought the room couldn't get darker, the shadows gave a lurch and surged toward us. "Mom!" My son's voice pierced through my thoughts. He tugged at my sleeve, his eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I understood. I had been given a choice. The locket was more than a connection to my past. It was a lifeline. But would I have the courage to embrace it? Before I could think any further, the darkness erupted around us, engulfing the stranger as he shouted one last warning. "Choose wisely or lose everything." The tension gripped me. The shadows pulsed and writhed, a storm of uncertainty and danger. I turned my gaze to my son, his innocent eyes pleading for safety. But the weight in my pocket urged me to do something. It was then that I knew. I couldn't let fear dictate my choices. That's when I took a deep breath. The decision loomed ahead, but I felt a flicker of clarity amidst the chaos. I had to fight back. But how? The shadows writhed around us, a living, breathing thing intent on consuming everything in its path. My heart pounded in rhythm with my son's shallow breaths. "Hold on to me," I said, my voice trembling. He nodded, clinging to my side as I felt the weight of the locket against my skin. The figure of the stranger flickered in my mind despite the chaos. He had offered me something, a chance to confront the darkness, or perhaps to learn its secrets. But right now, I couldn't think of the past. I had to focus on my son and getting us out. Which way? I whispered to no one in particular, the glow of the locket casting a pale light into the swirling mass around us. A guttural whisper slithered through the dimness, chilling my bones. I instinctively pressed my son closer. Then against the backdrop of the unrest, another sound broke through, the soft chime of bells. Distant and sweet, it pulled at me as if it knew the way forward. "This way!" I shouted, my voice stronger now, guiding us toward the sound. Each step felt like wading through thick mud, but I kept my focus. We moved, my heart racing faster with each pulse of the locket. The sound grew louder, transforming from a haunting echo into an inviting melody. As we pushed through the darkness, I could feel the shadows retreating ever so slightly. It was as if they feared the music, a strange but powerful idea that sent hope surging through me. And then, just as we inched toward the source of the bells, I stumbled. A haphazard jumble of limbs collided with my shoulder, sending me sprawling onto the dusty floor. My son yelped, but I was quick to catch him before he too lost his footing. "Mom, are you okay?" he cried, his youthful voice thick with anxiety. "I'm fine," I assured him, my voice laced with a steadiness I tried to conjure. But then a thought struck me, sharp and sudden. I had to find the white-haired stranger again. Was he still here? Could he still help us navigate this chaos? I turned, scanning the encroaching shadows. "Stay close to me," I urged, rising to my feet and brushing off the dust. The locket pulsed, its light flickering unevenly like the flutter of hope. I could almost feel its energy urging me to push forward, to reclaim the power it promised. "Mom!" My son tugged at my sleeve, eyes wide as he pointed. "Look!" Following his finger, I saw a brief outline, a figure standing at the edge of the light, watching us intently. A flicker of recognition hit me. It was him. The stranger had returned, just as I had hoped. But he wasn't alone. The shadows were thicker now, swirling around him like a tempest. My heart dropped. What were they doing to him? Did he hold the answer to our escape, or was he a pawn to the darkness? "Help us!" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. "We need to get out of here." The figure raised a hand, But before he could respond, the shadows surged forward once more, swallowing him whole. The chilling fear returned with a vengeance, wrapping around me like a vice. "Mom!" my son cried again, and in that moment, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. I was done waiting. I tightened my grip on the locket, letting its warmth seep into my palm. If the stranger believed the locket was a lifeline, then I would wield it with all my might. "We're fighting back," I declared, turning my gaze to the darkness that threatened to overwhelm us. Then everything went quiet for a split second, and I took a step forward, ready to confront whatever came next. Before I could take another step, the silence shattered. The shadows twisted violently, swelling up like a monstrous wave. I squeezed my son's hand, tightly anchoring him at my side. "Stay behind me," I ordered, my voice firm despite the tremor in my heart. The locket glowed with new intensity, illuminating the edges of the swirling darkness. In that moment, I felt it. An electric connection between us and the light. It was more than just a tool. It was a beacon. But the shadows writhed with malevolence, like they were angry about our defiance. "Come on," I urged, moving forward. Each step felt like a battle, not against the shadows, but against the fear trying to pull me back. The sound of the bells grew louder, but it was now accompanied by a sinister chorus, a cacophony that mocked our plight. I had to drown it out. Suddenly, a blackened hand shot out from within the shadows, reaching for my son. I lunged, grabbing him just in time, yanking him away as the hand clawed at the empty air. "Run!" I shouted, feeling the urgency in my bones. We stumbled through the darkness, the bell chimes echoing louder now, pulling us forward like a promise. Just when I thought we were breaking free, the shadows coalesced again. They formed a swirling mist that surged between us and the path we needed to take. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of movement. The stranger's figure flickered back into view, faint but determined. I wanted to cry out for help, but a feeling gripped me. What if he was leading us into a trap? Yet here, amid the chaos, he felt like the only shred of hope remaining. "Look, that way!" my son shouted, pointing to a gap in the haze. My instinct screamed at me. Was it a way out or another deception? With no time to think, I seized the moment. "Trust me," I said to my son, darting toward the gap. We burst through, but the shadows lashed out, their icy tendrils grazing my arms. A jolt of pain shot through me, but the warmth of the locket surged, wrapping me in an echo of strength. As we stumbled into the small clearing beyond the shadows, I felt a rush of relief. But it was fleeting. Before us stood a large door, its surface adorned with ancient symbols that glowed faintly in the locket's light. I turned to my son, who was breathing heavily, his eyes wide with fear. "Do you think it will lead us to safety?" he asked, almost pleading. "I don't know," I admitted, doubt creeping back into my mind. Just then, a faint echo of laughter filtered through the air, tinged with malice. Someone else was here. Then out of the shadows, figures emerged. Dark silhouettes twisted and turned, undulating like smoke. My heart raced as I realized they weren't just shadows. They were forms. Faces I couldn't quite recognize but felt profoundly familiar. A deeper dread settled over me. "Get back!" I yelled, taking a step forward as the symbols on the door began to pulse in time with my heart. "I won't let you take him." But the figures had stopped, halted mid-motion, and my son's expression turned to dread. "Mom, what are they?" His voice trembled, pulling my focus back. In the flickering light, I saw them clearer now. Each was a reflection of shadow and memory. I grasped the locket tighter, feeling its heat intensify once more. "I don't know," I breathed, the fear gnawing at my courage. But they're not going to take us. Then, in a moment of clarity, I stepped towards the door. I noticed the symbols were aligning with the pulses of the locket. Maybe, just maybe, this was our way out. Or the beginning of something far worse. But I had to try. As I reached for the door, it seemed to shimmer, inviting yet warning at the same time. "Hold on," I whispered, hoping against hope that whatever lay beyond wouldn't be more terrifying than the shadows themselves. I reached for the door, fingertips brushing against the cool metal. The symbols glowed brighter, and a rush of warmth flooded through me, as if the door itself recognized my touch. Right then, heavy silence swallowed the cacophony of the shadows behind us. My heart raced. "Are you ready?" I asked my son, feeling the weight of the moment. He nodded slowly, his small hand squeezing mine. I pushed the door open, wincing as it creaked, the sound echoing in the stillness beyond. We stepped into a narrow hallway, dimly lit by flickering candles that lined the walls. The air was thicker here, charged with energy, as if the very walls were alive. I could feel my pulse racing, echoing loudly in my ears. We weren't safe yet. As I took another cautious step, the laughter returned, sharper now, echoing impossibly close. I twisted around, but there was nothing behind us, just the door beginning to close, sliding shut with a final whisper. I turned back, forcing myself to focus. The hallway was lined with doors, each one marked with similar symbols, all glowing faintly. "What do we do now, Mom?" my son whispered. "What if they come after us?" "We find a way out," I replied, hoping my voice sounded braver than I felt. Then I noticed something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. One of the doors glinted more intensely than the others. The symbol there seemed to vibrate, almost calling to me. "Look," I said, gesturing towards the door. "That one's different." My son edged closer to me, eyes wide. He could sense the tension, too. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into a high-pitched scream, echoing from nowhere and everywhere all at once, rattling the air around us. I grabbed my son's hand tighter, pulling him close. "We have to move, now." At that moment, I heard something. A faint tapping, like nails on wood, coming from the glowing door. My instincts flared. "We should go," I urged, starting to back away, but my son wasn't moving. He stood frozen, staring wide-eyed at the door. Before I could pull him away, the door swung open. A figure stood within, tall, with white hair streaming down his back. He wore a tattered cloak that seemed to shimmer like the symbols on the door itself. I stepped back instinctively, shielding my son. "Do not be afraid," the stranger said, his voice steady and calm, contrasting sharply with the chaos outside. He raised his hand, revealing a small object glimmering in the light. "I have something for you. It will help." "What do you want?" I shouted, though I could barely mask the tremor in my voice. "Just trust me," he replied, a faint smile touching his lips. "Time is short, and you have no idea of the danger closing in." He extended his hand further, and in the dim light, I could see a locket, almost identical to the one I held. For a heartbeat, I hesitated. The warmth in my hand pulsed harder as if warning me to stay away. "Why should I trust you?" I demanded. "Because your son needs you to," he said, glancing at the shadows peeking around the door. "And only together can you defeat what lies ahead." The sincerity in his voice tugged at my resolve. But before I could respond, the shadows started to seep into the hall, stretching towards us. I knew we had to make a decision, and fast. "Mom," my son whispered, his grip tightening. "What do we do?" The air shifted again, thickening with dread. I had a choice to make, and time was running out. The whispers began again, clearer this time, wrapping around my thoughts like smoke. Then I got it. The stranger was dangerous, yes, but so was staying here. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my throat. "What's it gonna be?" I asked, feeling the weight of my decision pressing down. But before I could grasp what the stranger truly held, a shadow darted forward, and everything went dark. The darkness enveloped us, swallowing every sound. Panic surged through me, my instincts screaming that we had to escape. I felt my son's small frame pressed against me, his little heart racing alongside mine. Where had the light gone? "Mom!" he called, his voice barely a whisper, strained with fear. I wrapped my arms around him tighter. "I'm here," I breathed, trying to keep my voice calm. Then, as quickly as the darkness had come, a sharp flicker of light cut through, illuminating the space around us. We stood in the same hallway, but it felt altered, oppressive. Shadows swirled more menacingly now, as if aware that we lingered. I looked up at the door, still ajar, but the stranger was gone. The locket he'd offered remained in my hand, warm and pulsing. "Mom, I don't like this place," my son whispered, inching closer. "Can't we go back?" "No, we can't," I replied, scanning the flickering candles. I could feel the weight of the situation. We were running out of time. Then I saw it, a glimmer from the far end of the hallway. "Look!" I pointed towards it, hope flaring for a moment. It looked like a crack of light, bright and inviting, perhaps a way out. "We need to go there." As we moved toward the light, I realized the shadows were shifting restlessly, closing in behind us. "Faster, honey," I urged, pulling him along. Each step felt heavy. The air pressed down on us, thickening with uncertainty, but the shadows raced and whispers enveloped us. "You cannot escape." The sound slithered through the air, chilling me. I could barely think. Were they coming for us? The idea sent another wave of urgency crashing over me. "Mom!" my son cried, his voice sharper now. I turned to see him pointing at the door we'd passed. Shivers crawled over my skin. The glowing symbols were pulsing, almost throbbing with energy. The voices warped into a chaotic cacophony, desperate to be heard. "We have to check that door," I said. The moment hung in the air, thickening with its weight. "We can't keep running blindly." He nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. We turned back, racing towards the door with frantic steps. I grasped the handle, and the moment I pulled it open, a wave of cool air washed over us. Inside was a small room, illuminated by the same warm light that radiated from the locket. Inside, there were mirrors lining the walls, all reflecting different versions of ourselves. Some were smiling, vibrant, while others appeared hollow and dark. "What is this place?" my son asked, his voice laced with confusion. I don't know, but we need to stay together." Something clattered behind us. I spun around to find a shadow creeping into the room, a grotesque figure emerging from the darkness. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, and I felt the weight of dread settle in my chest. With nowhere left to go, I instinctively held the locket aloft. "Stay away!" I shouted. But the urge to flee was intense, a primal instinct pushing me to run. "Mom!" My son's plea echoed in my ears, grounding me for a moment. The locket in my hand pulsed with warmth once more, connecting me to something deeper, powerful. Then I realized I wasn't ready to let go of hope. The shadow lunged and I braced for impact, ready to fight for my son and myself. That's when the locket flared brightly, casting a brilliant light that pushed the darkness away, if only for a moment. "I don't know what's happening," I shouted, But I needed to understand. Then the doors slammed shut around us, sealing our fate. The room grew colder, the shadows retreating, but not disappearing. I could still feel their presence, lurking just beyond the edges of light. My heart raced, but I focused on my son, clutching tightly to the warmth of his small hand. "What do we do now, Mom?" His voice trembled, the uncertainty creeping back. I wanted to reassure him, but the fear gnawed at me. "Let's just take a moment. Maybe this place has answers." The mirrors reflected fragments of my son and me. Some were comforting while others whispered dark secrets I couldn't hear yet. I stepped forward, drawn to one of the brighter reflections. It shone as if it knew something important. Suddenly the shadows began to flicker, like a storm brewing just beyond the door. "Stay close," I murmured, squeezing his hand tighter. "I'll keep you safe." Then, the mirror shifted. The image began to swirl, and words appeared, etched in shimmering letters. "Face the truth within." What does that mean? My son's eyes were wide, searching mine for any sign of an answer. "I'm not sure, but it feels important." I stepped closer, hesitant but compelled. My fingers brushed against the glass. Instantly, a chime rang out, breaking the silence. "Mom!" My son pulled on my sleeve, his eyes darting back to the shadows gathering behind us. "The shadows! They're moving!" I turned, panic rising in my throat. The shadow I faced in the corner morphed, taking the shape of a figure I recognized from somewhere in the depths of my memory. A sense of dread washed over me. Who are you?" I stammered, my voice barely rising above a whisper. "It is not me you should fear." The voice echoed, sending chills down my spine. "It is what you hide from yourself." "What do you want?" I shouted back, bewildered and desperate. The shadow smiled, a cruel, twisted smile, and I felt a wave of anger surging through me, a protective instinct for my son overpowering the fear. With newfound resolve, I lifted the locket once again. "We are leaving this place. You cannot take us." The light pulsed fiercely, and the shadow wailed, retreating as the glow expanded. But just then, a soft voice seeped into my mind, the sound of my son's terrified heartbeat underscoring every word. "Mom, please don't let it come for me." At that moment I suddenly remembered the warmth of my pact with the locket, how it shimmered with potential. Engulfing the negativity within me, I called forth all the love and strength I had to shield my child. Light burst from the locket, illuminating the entire room, forcing the darkness to shrivel away. A sudden rush of air filled the spaces, dislodging the shadows that were crowding too close for comfort. "Quickly!" I urged my son. "We have to go through the mirror." He looked back at me, then at the swirling image reflecting our desperate effort for escape. Without hesitating, I took his hand, pulling him forward with all my strength. As we stepped through, the world twisted around us. That's when I saw it. A door appearing amidst the chaos of swirling colors. With every ounce of determination, I pulled us through, crashing into the unexpected light. Then everything fell silent. We stood atop a green hill, surrounded by a beautiful sky, a stark contrast to what we just escaped. But the shadow had not vanished. I could feel its grasp lingering like a shadow added to my own. Before I could breathe again, a familiar figure appeared on the hilltop. Not the shadow, but the stranger from earlier. The locket in my hand grew cold. "Welcome back," he said, his voice smooth and chilling. A shiver raced down my spine. This was far from over. The sun shone brightly, but the warmth felt hollow. I clutched the locket as if it could protect me from what I sensed lurking nearby. My son fidgeted, shifting from one foot to the other. I could see confusion etched on his face, mirroring my own. "Who is he, Mom?" my son asked, taking a small step backward, instinctively shielding himself behind my leg. I wish I knew. I kept my gaze fixed on the stranger. His white hair reflected the sunlight, contrasting sharply with the dark figure that haunted my thoughts. "But he doesn't look friendly." The stranger's smile widened, revealing unnaturally sharp teeth. "Fear not. I am here to help." The way he spoke felt more like a threat than a promise. "Help us?" I questioned, doubt creeping into my voice. "Why should I trust you?" "Because you're running out of time." His gaze flickered past us, and I could almost sense something dark moving in the distance, something just beyond the edge of the light. "What do you mean?" I pressed, holding my son tighter. "The shadows are relentless," he said with a casual calm that unsettled me. "You cannot hide from them. You must confront what binds you." "What binds me?" I repeated, frowning as I tried to grasp his meaning. The shadows I narrowly escaped still clung to the corners of my mind, but I had no idea how to face them. "I don't even know how to begin." He stepped closer, and my instinct screamed for me to retreat. "This locket is your key, but it requires sacrifice. To unlock its true power, you must acknowledge your fear." "Sacrifice?" My heart raced. What kind of sacrifice? He pulled something from his pocket. It was a small dark stone, swirling with a misty essence. "This is a fragment of that which you fear most. Take it, and you will gain clarity. But no, clarity comes at a cost." A chill wrapped around me, and I hesitated. "What will it cost?" "A piece of your heart," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The words hung in the air, weighing heavy on my conscience. "No!" my son cried out, tugging at my arm. "Don't listen to him. We can find another way." I knelt beside him, my heart aching. I can't ignore this. If I don't confront the shadows, they'll drown us both. "But, Mom, I don't want to lose you." His eyes filled with tears. The thought pierced through my resolve. The stranger interjected. "Your decision will determine your fate. The longer you wait, the stronger the shadows become." With every second, the sense of urgency grew. I looked down at my son, at the innocent fear etched on his face. "You'll be safe with me, I promise," I whispered. But inside, doubt gnawed at me. Would I really be able to protect him? I took a deep breath and reached for the stone, my heart thudding in my chest. Just as my fingers brushed its surface, the world around us shifted. The hilltop faded, replaced by the darkness that had been chasing us. "Mom, no!" My son's scream echoed in my ears as I plunged into the shadows, feeling both the weight of my decision and the brightness of our love pulling me down. Then everything went dark. The darkness wrapped around us like a suffocating blanket, disorienting me. I instinctively clutched my son's hand tighter, feeling the fragility of our bond amid the chaos. A whisper surged through me, echoing my deepest fears. What if this choice was a mistake? Suddenly, the cold stone in my hand pulsed, flowing with energy I had never felt before. The shadows shifted around us, almost curiously, as if they could sense the change. I glimpsed fleeting shapes, the dark memories I'd tried desperately to escape. Shadows of regret, guilt, pain, all of it looming, waiting to reclaim their hold on me. "Mom?" My son's voice trembled beside me, pulling me from the spiral of despair threatening to engulf me. "What's happening?" "I don't know," I replied, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. Clenching the stone, I felt its weight. a physical reminder of the sacrifice I had chosen to embrace. I had reached a point of no return. Then, something shifted within the darkness. I sensed a presence, a force that seemed to rise from the shadows themselves. A figure began to form, twisting and shaping into something recognizable, a reflection of my younger self, a child carrying the weight of so many hidden fears. Her eyes mirrored mine, wide with confusion and lingering trauma. "I'm you," the apparition said, her voice soft yet resolute. "You've tried to ignore me, haven't you?" "No." I started to protest, but the words caught in my throat. How could I deny the truth she brought forth? So many times I'd hoped that moving on would mean leaving behind everything that had hurt me. "Look closely," she urged, gesturing to the shadows swirling closer. "These are your fears, made manifest. You cannot defeat them by simply running away." She was right. I had thought that by distancing myself, I could shield my son from my past mistakes. But what was hidden had only lingered, growing more powerful. I was trapped in a cycle, the darkness feeding off my insecurities and regrets. As I processed her words, the locket in my hand began to vibrate, illuminating the space around us in a brilliant glow. The brightness pushed against the encroaching shadows, momentarily forming a barrier that separated us. It made me feel both powerful and terrified. "Are you ready to face the truth?" my younger self asked, her gaze unwavering. "It's time to acknowledge what you've been running from." I glanced at my son, who looked up at me with such innocent trust. His small hand had a firm grip on mine, urging me forward. "I don't want to lose you, Mom." "I won't let that happen," I promised, with a new sense of determination coursing through me. "But I have to confront what lies in the darkness. We have to face it together." The figure nodded, understanding etched on her face. "Embrace your past. You're stronger than you know." I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the locket seep into me, a reminder of my strength and love for my child. Together we stepped forward into the shadows. As we moved, the darkness seemed to pull back slightly, flinching at my courage. "Come on," I urged, my voice rising against the swirling void. "You have no power over me." Fleeting images of my past swirled around. Every mistake, every moment of weakness threatening to consume me. But now, with the stone in hand and my son beside me, I felt a surge of defiance. "You don't own me," I shouted, my voice rising above the clamor. In response, the shadows lunged forward, forming into a collective mass, indistinct yet menacing. Fingers extended toward us, clawing for what they yearned to reclaim. But I pushed forward. "You will not take him." With a rush, light burst from the locket, merging with the stone's energy. The overwhelming force pushed against the darkness like a tidal wave, forcing it to recede. The shadows wailed, their cries echoing in the void as they dissipated into the ether. As light engulfed us completely, I felt a weight lift, a freedom washing over me. "We did it!" I gasped, turning to my son, who looked both bewildered and relieved. The darkness had begun to fade, leaving traces of its presence in the form of fleeting echoes. But then something shifted. The stranger reappeared, looming at the edge of the light, a figure both terrifying and intriguing. "This is only the beginning," he warned, his voice echoing like a distant prophecy. "The shadows are persistent, but you hold the power to overcome them." "What do you want from us?" I demanded, raw courage fueling my challenge. "Observance," he replied coolly, as I sensed the shadows curling back hesitantly at his feet. "You were faced with your truth, but there are more to be revealed. Your journey isn't complete." "What do you mean?" My heart raced with uncertainty. "In time," he said, fading slightly but his eyes never leaving mine. You will understand. The light dimmed slowly, revealing the remnants of the shadows scattered around us, ambiguous and haunting. But something shifted within me. Rather than fear, there was resolve. I held the remains of my past in my hand, a reminder that confronting them was not merely about survival, but transformation. As we stepped beyond the remnants, I felt something close. There would always be unanswered questions, shadows lingering at the edges of consciousness. I turned to my son, pulling him close. No matter what happens next, we'll face it together. Together we ascended toward the light, embracing the uncertainty but finding empowerment in every step. I moved forward, acknowledging that while the path ahead remained unpredictable, we had done the unimaginable. We had stood against our fears and taken our first steps toward the unknown. I still think about that night sometimes, lingering shadows whispering in my mind. But they do not have power over me anymore.